How is it that we find ourselves surrounded by such complexity, such elegance?
The genes of you and me, the genes of you and me, they're all made of DNA. We're all made of the same chemical DNA. We're all made of DNA.
Hello, you're listening to DNA Today, a genetics podcast and radio show. I'm your host, Kira Deneen. DNA Today informs you on what's happening in the genetic world. During my broadcast, I educate the public on genetic and public health topics through event coverage, news stories, book movie reviews, and interviews. Guests include genetic counselors, researchers, patient advocates, and professors in the field of genetics. Joining me today is two guests, Bernadette Scarduzio and Allison Moore. Bernadette and Allison are passionate advocates for Charcot Marie Tooth syndrome, also known as CMT. They both work for the Hereditary Neuropathy Foundation. Allison is the founder and CEO, and Bernadette is the social media coordinator. Bernadette was born with CMT and lives with the syndrome every day. To raise awareness for the disease, Bernadette's life and family were featured in her self-titled documentary supported by the HNF. Many of Bernadette's family members also have the syndrome, and she's made it her mission to fight for CMT. September is National Awareness Month for CMT, so it's perfect timing for Bernadette and Allison to educate us on CMT in honor of the Awareness Month. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
So let's start out with just what is CMT, the general question.
Charcot Marie Tooth is a neurological disorder that affects the peripheral nervous system. There's over 100 different types of CMT, so it's a very complicated illness to have, and it is progressive. There's no cure, and unfortunately, it's the most common hereditary neuropathy in the world, so it's very common to have other family members that have it. It's a 50-50 chance of passing it on to your child. And it's a devastating disease to have because you're not just having it for yourself, but you're also watching a father or mother or a child suffer with it. So it's pretty devastating. And I've made it my mission to raise awareness, not only for me and my family, but for other people that are suffering with it as well, because I know the struggle of what it's like to grow up with CMT.
Kira, I'd like to also mention that early signs are usually somewhat mild. Kids will start with toe walking, very high arched feet. Sometimes they'll have some weakness in the dorsiflexion, lifting the feet, their hands, and often there's some numbness and burning sensation and some neuropathic pain that seems to go along with this. And as the disease progresses, it becomes more and more difficult for patients to walk and have the normal use of their hands. So it is very devastating because you slowly progress, and sometimes you don't even know what's happening until it gets to a point where you just can't manage anymore. And when it gets really bad, patients will rely on a wheelchair or scooter. And as we know, it's not easy to be living in a world that's walking is just so important in daily living.
So CMT is, as you guys say in the documentary, is the most common inherited disease that no one has ever heard of. That's kind of how you've coined it. But you're both changing that with your advocacy efforts. Allison, how prevalent is CMT?
Well, right now the numbers are 1 in 2,500, but experts believe it's grossly misdiagnosed and underdiagnosed. So the numbers now are floating around 2.6 to 2.8 million people worldwide. So it really is as common as these diseases that people know about, like MS and Parkinson's and ALS and all these other diseases. It's actually more prevalent than some of the ones that are already known, like muscular dystrophy and ALS. So for some crazy reason, the disease is not getting the attention that it needs. So we're really appreciative of you putting this podcast on for our community.
Of course. And Bernadette, can you give us kind of an inside look about kind of how it is to live with CMT and what your experience has been, how it's impacted your life?
Yeah, well, growing up as a kid, I was very active, and even though I was a little bit slower than everybody else in elementary school, middle school, but I still was active. I did everything everybody else did. I carried my 30-pound school bag. I walked to school. And, not knowing much about the disease as a kid, I feel like it kind of held me back because I didn't really know what was going on with my body, and I didn't know why I was tired, and I didn't, and I just kind of, my family just kind of didn't really want to talk about the illness, so it wasn't really, it was hard because it was like I was living with it myself, and I was trying to deal with, why things were happening and why I was falling, and, why when I would write like an essay, I remember like, why does it get hard after like 2 or 3 papers? Like I didn't understand that the disease was really affecting like my whole body. I thought it was just I had drop foot, and I had a high arch, and I didn't know about the illness because there was no internet and there was really no support out there. The H&F didn't exist. My family didn't really like to talk about it, so it was hard. And I've had surgeries because I used to wear shoes that gave me blisters, and I couldn't walk right, and I was having numbness, and I was falling. So the really only option they had for me was to, straighten out my arch and straighten my toes and try to give me more mobility. Doctors were telling me, if we do this operation to transfer tendons, it will help her walk better, and she'll be able to live a more normal life. And unfortunately, 28 operations later, some were very necessary and some weren't, but most of them I feel like didn't really do much. I feel like what helped me most was having good friends and family to help me through all my surgeries, doing physical therapy, going in the pool, stretching, and just keeping my body moving. Physical therapy has always helped me more than anything, and it's just, growing up with CMT was hard, but what I realized was, I'm different and something's going on. Once I knew that what CMT was, I realized I had a choice to either hide it or to just come out and talk about it. And I realized like all these people were asking me, what's wrong with you? Or why do you walk like that? Or why does your hand look like that? Or, are you okay? And so it really helped me to be like, you know what? I want to start telling people what CMT is, because everybody's asking me what's wrong with me. And when I tell them what it is, they don't know. So it really helped me, want to make the film. And when I had Josh approach me saying, I would love to film you, you living with your illness. And I said yes. And three and a half years later, we have a documentary out. So that really gave me a boost to try to help the community, and it really gave me like a good base to work with raising awareness. And it really helped me emotionally because it gave me a will to live. It gave me something to live for. It gave me something to fight for, even though I was losing the battle of walking. I was losing the battle of using my body and functioning and being able to take my own showers and do my own daily tasks. Although I lost that battle, I was still able to help other people fight the battle of CMT. It's hard, but it's rewarding.
And you're creating this network so that people that have CMT don't feel as alone, and they understand what it is and other people that have it, and you're really creating that family for patients and their family members that have CMT. CMT is hereditary, so it runs in families. It's had a major impact on your family. Can you share who's been affected by CMT in your family?
Yeah, my father had it, and his father had it, which is my grandfather. And my grandfather is one of 9, and I think like 7 of them had it out of 9.
Wow.
So it became very, it's a 50-50 chance. So, and my family had it mildly. I'm the only one as of now that we know of that was wheelchair bound from CMT. Most of my family members that had it actually passed away very young, in their 40s. My dad passed away when he was 55 in 2008 from a massive heart attack. Now, I'm not saying that was from CMT, but a lot of my family members, unfortunately, with this illness have passed. And, it's hard to, look at that. And so I try to live my life every day as, it's my last, and very fortunate to have the people in my life. And now I don't even know where I'm going with that. But yeah, the family members. So my father had it, unfortunately passed it on to me and my brother. We both have it. My brother doesn't have it as bad as me. He now does wear leg braces, and his hands are starting to now affect him more. But he's doing pretty well. And I do have some cousins, distant cousins that have it, and some aunts and uncles that have had it that have passed as well.
Now, something you talk about in the documentary is your choice not to have children. And your brother had children, but he didn't pass it on to his children. So in the film, you were saying that CMT is kind of ended in your family. How do you feel about this? How is this kind of affecting you, and just how you feel about, other relatives?
Yeah, I decided to not have children, not just because of CMT, but that was obviously a big factor. But I honestly was okay with just being me and knowing that my body was was progressing. I just said, you know what, I'd rather not bring a child into this world sick. And with me being so sick, I was scared to raise a child. And so that decision was made, and I'm okay with it. I've been okay with it since I made the decision when I was in my young 20s.
So let's myth bust a few misconceptions about CMT. Bernadette, one of your parents, or both of your parents, believe that the disease was more prevalent in males, and we find out that that's not the case. What else is out there that you want to kind of clear the air with?
So when it comes to Charcot Marie Tooth, the certain forms are dominant and certain forms are recessive, but there are some forms that are X-linked. It's a more rarer form, and that's when the mother usually has the gene, doesn't really show symptoms, or if they have it, it's very mild and it's passed typically just to males. But the most common form of CMT is CMT1A, which is an autosomal dominant disease, which equally affects males and females. 50% of the time it is passed. So it is a myth, and I think that with Bernadette's mother, when she was born, because her father, they were so optimistic when they had a girl. They were like, this is fantastic. Now we don't have to worry about this disease. And unfortunately, that was not the case. And Bernadette has a brother with the disease, as she mentions, and Bernadette is more severely affected than the brother. So it really is a myth, and we need to educate because of genetics. I mean, I think family planning is very important, and I also think that it's important that the medical community, the geneticists especially, understand this disease is out there. And I'm just going to mention this. When I went to go have my children, I went to a hospital here in New York City for genetic counseling because I have CMT1A. And when I walked in, they were on the HNF website trying to learn about it. They had never heard of it. So we need the genetic community to really be educated on this, geneticists and genetic counselors. So I'm so excited that you're doing this, and I think that we need to expand on this podcast and offer courses and so forth to support your community in learning more about this disease.
Definitely, and I want to say I'm, hoping to be a future genetic counselor, so that's one more in the world that knows about CMT. But also, in one of my classes recently, I had a little mini project to kind of present to the class about CMT. So it's definitely getting out there. I heard about it before I met both of you, so that's definitely a really positive thing, and the ripple effect is happening. Allison, you had genetic counseling, and did you also have genetic testing with that?
Kira, my father had a genetic test done for CMT, and it was confirmed that he has PMP22, which is Charcot Marie Tooth type 1, the most common. And typically, if he has that, most likely I do. But now there's a phase 3 clinical trial that's up and running in the U.S., in Europe, and soon Canada. It's called PXT 3003. It's a drug that hopefully will help the community. And now that this drug is underway in clinical testing or clinical trials, it is an opportunity for me to really get a definitive diagnosis. So I am planning on doing genetic testing in the next couple weeks.
Now, Bernadette, have you had any genetic counseling or genetic testing?
No, I haven't, but my brother did. So he, they say if one has my brother has CMT1A, and that's what they were assuming that I have. I've never been genetically tested. No. But my grandfather was, and back in the 70s, I remember, and they telling me, and my brother was. And I'm not sure if my father was either.
Can I just mention something, Kira, because
Yeah.
I think it's important? One of the things that we're learning about CMT is the complexity, more and more complexity involved in the genetics behind it. It's just not an easy disease to understand. And what we're learning is that sometimes within the same family, there'll be an offspring with a more severe phenotype. And what they're finding is there's a triplication instead of a duplication in the gene. So it's really this, all the mysteries and unraveling what really is going on in the genetics is so important in discovering treatments for the disease. So I just wanted to mention that because I know you're listening. I was going to say readership, or
Both, yeah.
your listeners and readership, I would imagine, are primarily in the genetics field.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it really shows that, like, not only is CMT being more discovered in terms of what genes are there, CMT is definitely very complex with over 80 mutations. So that can include duplications, deletions, so a lot of things that can happen within certain genes to cause CMT. So 80 different types. So it's not just one mutation that can cause CMT, which is maybe why it is so prevalent, because there's so many different types of mutations. So Allison, can you share what the Hereditary Neuropathy Foundation's goals are and what services it provides people?
Yes, so there's two approaches here for what we do to support the community. We're really all about the patients. We're patient-centered. We want to improve quality of life by offering various programs to give them hope and tools to have the best life possible despite the disability they have. So we have an online support group that's really robust, and it offers all kinds of conversations and information that is supportive, from how do you handle the emotional effects of dealing with a child that's just diagnosed, or where to get the best leg braces to improve your gait, and just the support of other patients. So that's one thing that has been really useful to the community. We have testimonies on that, and we're working closely with that community with surveying and improving what we can do to support the community. In addition to that, we have a program called Cmt Connect, and what that is, we've launched that about 6 months ago, and it's really online. It's actually not online, it's offline workshops. We've launched it in New York, and now we're launching it in Florida, and we're going to extend that throughout the United States. And basically, those workshops are patients and caregivers getting together and us picking topics each month when we meet with them, and it's really hands-on. So, for example, in New York last month, we did adaptive yoga, and we had an expert there come in. We actually did yoga, and it was really exciting to see people that have never done yoga before learn how to do this. And we found out that some of them have already enrolled in classes to continue this. So things like that. We also are dedicated to research. So we have several programs. Back in 2007, we formed the Therapeutic Research and Accelerated Discovery Program. It's called the Triad. And we work collaboratively with academia, government, and industry to translate research and support industry in their clinical trials. And that's showing to be a very useful model. And for the first time, we're seeing potential treatments. So there's never been a more exciting time for our community. And then lastly, there's so many programs, we can't mention them all, but lastly, what I do want to mention, because I think it's important to your listeners and your readership, we have a patient registry, and we also have a natural history study that we just launched, where we are collecting data on patients, and it includes all the genetic forms of the disease. And we're really excited about this because this is going to provide information to the research community to help them to accelerate treatments for every single form of CMT. It's not just about CMT1A, the most common form. There's also HNPP, which stands for hereditary neuropathy, pressure palsy, the second most common. And then there's various other forms that are still out there, and they're not as common, but they still could be extremely debilitating. And I also would like to mention that there's ultra rare forms that are absolutely devastating, where these children start to develop symptoms very early on. Sometimes it's fatal, it affects breathing. We're even finding certain forms of CMT that are causing blindness, if you can imagine. So it really runs the gamut. And we're even seeing families, a mother or a father that has the genetic mutation, have no symptoms, and then they have a child that's very severe. So it's really important that we understand the onset of the disease and the natural history of it. And as we continue to support this program, we'll actually not only be looking at short term, we'll be looking at longitudinal studies. So this is really going to be groundbreaking for the community. So I just wanted to share that also with you.
And not only do you guys have all of that, which is so comprehensive and so much for patients and for families and for people that may think they have it, just kind of encompassing everyone in the community. You guys are also hosting a patient-centered Charcot Marie Tooth Summit, which is just around the corner on October 6th in New York City. And it's going to be a huge event. Tell us a little bit about this. Bernadette, you're going to be speaking as part of the panel. What's the focus of the panel?
Yeah, I'm going to be one of the panelists speaking about a patient advocate and what it's like living with CMT. And I'm looking forward to not only meeting other people with CMT, but I get to meet genetic counselors and scientists and researchers and doctors and nutritionists that are all there to help CMT and us living with it. So I'm really excited to be one of the panelists, and Allison, I know, is super excited about this event. It's going to be great.
So, Allison, what else is being offered at the summit?
Well, I think what's really exciting about this, I think it's really going to be a game changer for the community because it's the first of its kind. We were very blessed to be awarded this grant from PCORI. PCORI is a division or it's one of the centers or affiliated with the National Institute of Health, and really it's so much about patients. Patients drive research. Patients are the ones taking the medication or the gene therapy. It's important that the patients have a voice, and our voice needs to be heard. So for the first time, we're putting together this patient-centered Charcot Marie Tooth Summit, and there's going to be so much going on. Our keynote speaker is a culinary nutritionist by the name of Stephanie Sachs, and we are really going to show what patients can do here and now to improve their quality of life through nutrition and exercise. We have patient testimonials and speakers. Patients are really running this conference. And there's so many things that we'll be talking about, from genetics to treatments to research, what's on the horizon for the next couple of years. Part of the mandate of this conference is to publish what comes out of it. And really, it's about identifying the gaps in research and why there really are no treatments for our disease. I mean, it's really crazy. So it's going to be so exciting to be able to get this out there and get it into the literature. For example, the genotype and phenotype of CMT is all over the map. We have a very well-known woman by the name of Lori Sames in the rare disease community. I call her a fighter mom. She has championed the rarest form of the disease called giant axonal neuropathy. And for the first time, there's a gene therapy underway, clinical trials right now for GAN, which stands for giant axonal neuropathy. So, there's all kinds of speakers. We have researchers, we have clinicians, really well-known famous researchers and clinicians that will be participating. And then, of course, what's really exciting is our sponsors. I mean, we couldn't do this without them. They've been able to help us to fill in the funding that we needed so we can offer this program at next to nothing for patients to attend. So it's going to be good. Really good.
It sounds like a fantastic opportunity for not only patients, but for doctors to go and nutritionists and for everyone to learn from each other.
Yeah.
Now, Bernadette, throughout the documentary, you've become a role model for many people with CMT. You have any parting words or advice to your fans out there?
Yeah, well, I want to say thank you, because I still get emails till this day and people saying I've, Googled CMT and I found you and I saw your documentary, or I saw clips of what you're doing, and they thank me so much. And what really gets me is that when people tell me about their children and they come to me and say, I have 3 kids with CMT, or I have 2 kids, or my daughter or my son, and they're just so thankful to me for giving their child hope. And they tell me that, oh, my kid went out and did something because of you today, and they joined, a sport and like I get these emails like that, and it's very rewarding for me. So it makes me want to keep on doing it because it's been 8 years now since I've started really like getting into advocating, and I want to say thank you to not only the people that have CMT, but even other people that don't even have it will reach out and say, what you're doing for your community is awesome. And I have neighbors and friends that tell me that they're so proud of me for keeping up the fight despite me getting worse, and that I have people always supporting me. So that's really what helps me keep on fighting and going on, and I just want to keep on doing more and more. So, and I'm actually I started doing live Facebook for CMT awareness every Tuesday, and it's like blowing up. I didn't realize how big, how important this was, but people are really responding to this. Probably the biggest response I've had since the film came out. I'm getting bombarded with just people telling me how inspired they are by watching me work out, and these live videos that I'm doing to help other people just maintain what they have. And so I'm looking forward to continuing these live videos on Facebook. And also I'm going to start doing some pool therapy exercises because I'm a real big advocate for being in the water, warm water exercising, because I've been doing it and it's changed my life. So I'm going to be hopefully showing that soon. And I just want to keep on inspiring people because I feel like it's what I should be doing, and it's what I want to do.
Definitely. And I just want to thank both of you for being amazing patient advocates and really being spokespersons for your community and role models for everyone, and really showing that, hey, you can do it and you put the effort in there and you can really see awesome results. And thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and Allison, it was great.
So a couple things to plug here. On Twitter, you can follow Bernadette at BurnsLife13, and on Facebook, that she just mentioned, Bernadette CMT Movie. And for the HNF, you can go to hnf-cure.org/Bernadette. You can also follow on Twitter at CMT Neuropathy. If you're interested in learning more about the show, you can go to dnapodcast.com. There's a brand new website on there. No longer looks ancient. It's pretty cool. Check it out. Also on Twitter at dnapodcast. And any questions for the three of us, info@dnapodcast.com. I will forward those along, or you can contact them via the social media links I just mentioned. All of that will be in the show notes in case I was talking a little too fast. dnapodcast.com. Thanks for listening. Join me next week to learn and discover new advances in the world of genetics.
The genes of you and me, they're all made of DNA. We're all made of the same chemical DNA. We're all made